So if I don't even know what our total gross demand, 100 trillion or whatever it is, maybe it's more than that, but 17% is going to healthcare when we've tried over. It makes no sense that this country, supposed to be the greatest country on the planet, cannot come up with a plan to have healthcare for their citizens. They're always talking about immigration. They're always talking about they're coming over here
or
to take
socialism,
this, or whatever the case may be. But we can't come up with a plan for healthcare, and it's the 17% of our GDP.
The award-winning A Black Executive Perspective podcast presents Pull Up, Speak Up, where meaningful conversations drive progress and every voice makes a difference. So, what's on the table for discussion today?
It's time to show up, speak up, and get real. Welcome to Pull Up, Speak Up, a new series by a Black Executive Perspective podcast, your safe space for raw, unfiltered, and honest discussions that people tend to shy away from. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit. So very excited to be here with you today. We have a fine panelist and dive into some deep issues. But before we get started, I want everyone to remember to check out our partners at Code M Magazine, whose mission is to save the Black family by first saving the Black man. Check them out at codemmagazine.com. That is codemmagazine.com. So today, our roundtable will dive into several different type of topics. Number one, corporate values clashing with political power, the rollback of DEI initiatives, the tragic assassination of a healthcare leader, Birthright citizenship debate, and they're going to provide their bold predictions for 2025. So let me introduce everyone to our fine roundtable, right? So first, Les Frye, a dynamic leader and creative force known for her work in film, television, and corporate America. Les Frye, welcome to Pull Up, Speak Up.
Glad to be here, always.
That is awesome. Next is Lauren Burke, a strategic marketing leader and the founder and CEO of LJS Advisory. Lauren Burke, welcome to Pull Up, Speak Up.
Thanks for having me today, Tony.
I'm glad you're here. And then rounding out, and not that he's last, because he's the man, right, is my good friend Wayne Edwards, an experienced television production professional and distinguished professor at the University of New Haven. Wayne Edwards, welcome to Pull Up, Speak Up, my brother.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Looking forward to the conversation.
So great. Number one, I'm excited. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. So first question, just so everybody knows you, I'd like to know a little bit about where you're currently living and a little bit about your family. We'll start with you first, Lauren.
I live in Fairfield, Connecticut, not far from where we're sitting right now. I live with my husband and my two young boys, ages 8 and 5. And as Tony so nicely mentioned, I am founder of my own marketing consulting company called LJS Advisory, but I grew up in the digital advertising world with Tony, actually.
Well, welcome. Very excited. Les Frye, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm originally from the Midwest, Florissant, Missouri. Currently living in Newark, New Jersey. I have 6 children. They are all 4-legged. Cats. and I am the executive producer of Cliff Dye Productions, which is a production company that takes on all types of productions, streaming, podcasting, and now plays, Broadway plays. So very excited about that. I met Tony, as he said before. Tony and I worked in the corporate world through digital advertising. I'm still in digital advertising as a day job. And I'm just really happy to be here and have a great conversation. Tony and I know we always debate, so this is going to be really good.
Now, you're already giving them all the secrets already, all right? That's all right. Well, I'm glad you're here too, my friend. And then obviously, Wayne, tell us a little bit about you, where you're living, and tell us a little bit about your family.
So yeah, I live in Southington, Connecticut with my wife and 2 kids. I have a daughter that's 17 and my son is 12. They're elite soccer players. Right now, I'm a distinguished lecturer at the University of New Haven teaching production, teaching journalism, also developed a course called Race, Gender, Class in the Media. And I'm also the owner of my own consulting company, Wayne Edwards Strategic Consulting, if I can get that out right. Wayne Edwards Strategic Consulting, in which I help small and large businesses with their media needs.
Awesome, awesome. Well, number one, thank you for coming. The other question I have real quick before we dive into the topics, you guys are all busy. You got a lot, you own a production company, you're this professor, you have your own marketing company, you guys have families. So the question I have for each with you, and I'm going to start with you, Wayne, on this one. What inspired you to join the Pull Up, Speak Up Roundtable to talk about these topics?
Well, it's about the topics, right? And these topics are, for lack of a better term, hard-hitting topics. And we're at a time now in our society where it's kind of apprehensive to talk about things that we're about to talk about because it may offend people, right? So having that space, that civic space, is refreshing. And I look forward to that.
Awesome. Les?
One of the reasons why I joined is, of course, I love having conversation with you and getting into debates with you, but mostly for education. I just recently spoke to someone who was a Gen Zer, and I felt like a lot of the education of the things that we're talking about, diversity and inclusion, it's something that's not impressed upon them anymore. They're confronted with it now in the society that we're in, but they don't know the history behind it. So having conversations like this authentically, speaking it from a perspective who's actually of a person who's actually dealt with these type of the dichotomy of the whole D&I space and working, I felt like this was really important for me to come here and have a very open and honest conversation, as candid as I possibly can. So,
well, that is great. Looking forward to chatting and debating. And then Lauren.
I'm here because I believe really strongly in what you're doing here with Black executive perspective, as well as Pull Up, Speak Up, because you are touching on topics that sort of bubble under the surface of society, and then they tend to kind of explode, right? And I think the more that we can all feel comfortable talking about them collectively, the easier it will be just to like vent, right? So we don't have these big, explosions, for lack of a better word. So I'm excited, to be here and kind of articulating my thoughts and on some of these topics and educating myself as well.
Well, that is great. And number one, I'm excited for all you guys to be here. So now, obviously, our format is we are going to talk about a lot of topics that they're probably going to elicit a response, a disagreement, which is fine. All that being said, we do have what we call our ground rules. So I'm going to go over the ground rules right now, and then after I go through them, I'd love to get a thumbs up from each person saying that you agree with the ground rules, and we'll get started, all right? So number one, respect all voices, right? At the end of the day, it's a person, human being that you're seeing who's giving their opinion. Listen to their opinion. It's okay. Listen actively. That's ground rule number 2, right? Listen to understand, not to defend. Number 3, no personal attacks. All right. I know, Lauren, you just got finished saying, I'm glad we can talk about this so things don't bubble up.
Yeah,
all right. So no personal attacks. It's a human being, right? Avoid interrupting. It will get passionate, but do your best part not to interrupt. Hear the person 100% and then provide your feedback. Stay open-minded. You walked into today's studio thinking a certain level of things about your beliefs, right? But there's an old saying, the mind is like an umbrella. It only works when it's open. So make sure you stay open-minded, and maybe we all can learn something from one another. Speak from your own experience. We all have our own lived experience. Just because this didn't happen to me doesn't mean that it didn't happen to somebody else. Stay on topic. We got a ton of stuff. So let's don't, digress or go sideways. This point, follow time limits. I can't have soliloquies. I can't have stuff to that nature, right? Make sure you stay tight. Say what you got to say, and then let somebody else talk. Challenge ideas, not people, all right? Which is very important. You disagree with that idea, but you're not disagreeing with a person. And then the last one, number 10, no buts, right? When we use the word but, we just erase what that person just said. I love you, but what you're basically saying, you don't love me, all right? Or I see your point of view, Wayne, but what you're really saying, I don't see your point of view, all right? So no buts. So I need to get a thumbs up from everybody that you agree with the ground rules. Okay, now this is a safe space. So you guys ready to talk about it?
Well, let's talk about it.
All right, let's talk about it. So let me kick off here. Today is January 5th, okay?
Oh boy.
I want you guys to think about this. Tomorrow is January 6th. 4 years to the day that supporters of Donald Trump attacked the U.S. Capitol and tried to halt the certification of the 2020 election. Tomorrow, 4 years to the day, Congress will usher in a new Trump era on Monday when it gathers the count of each state electoral votes and officially declare him the winner of last year's, which was just a few months ago, presidential election. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to start with you, Lauren. What's your thoughts? 4 years ago, we saw a bunch of people run into the Capitol, attack it, fight the Capitol Police. People died. Every person that saw it, but no matter what political platform, said this is abhorrent. This is terrible. He did this. Everybody spoke out about it, right? 4 years later, he's being certified for the new president. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'd like to say that I'm surprised, but not necessarily. I think with the Biden presidency, we were all hopeful that, things might move in a direction that we all felt a little bit more comfortable with, right? But then I think, here we are. And, we have to deal with the reality. I think we all learned some lessons based on the election results, that the country maybe wasn't as kind of progressive maybe as we thought. So I genuinely am, surprised, but I am, always hopeful that we are making moves, right, as a country, as a society, and we have to support our president.
Got it.
Today.
Wayne, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, Tony, the first thing that I picked up on was middle America and looking at the electoral votes, right? Middle America is set in their ways, very set in their ways, in more ways than one. But it's a clear message that middle America is not ready for a female leader, let alone a Black female leader. So we look at the trends that's happening on social media, F around and find out. These next 4 years, we're about to find out how this is going to unfold.
Got it. And Les, before I get your response, I just wanted, Lauren, said, hey, she's not surprised. Wayne said, hey, middle America, and they're going to see exactly what they voted for. In other words, paraphrasing what he said. But just in terms of 4 years ago, tomorrow, and you saw what happened, did you ever imagine that 4 years later they'll be going back to the same Congress and then certifying him when they fought against it, right? The election was stolen. He had a rally there, okay? And then all these people stormed the Capitol. And to be fair, if some of the lawmakers was inside, they got out, who knows what would have happened? So are you surprised that we are where we are today?
Not really. I feel like after the Obama administration and what went on, the antics that went on in the political arena there, we were in a decline. What I would consider to be the fabric of what we are known for in politics here in America, the decorum of that has been in decline since then. So it doesn't surprise me that people got, a pass to storm a Capitol after so many years that it took us to be, an established government. And the respect of that office has been in decline. And I wanted to address what Wayne said. I don't feel that middle America is the culprit here. I feel that it's just the mentality of America overall. There are a lot of men in this country that did not want to see a female, period.
Right.
It was a double whammy that she was Black, but they don't want to see that. So they either did not vote or they decided to vote for Donald Trump because of his bombastic politics and the way that he said things. And despite the fact that what this man, what comes out of his mouth, they revere him because he speaks his mind. And that's what they see. They don't see what his politics are. They don't see what his ethics are, but they admire the fact that he's able to speak his mind. And so this is why he was voted in.
Got it. Go ahead. You want
and the things that he does say, very broad stroke, right? And a kind of a theory that I have is, you say these things, but do you actually know the details that are involved in it, right? A lot of people don't ask that question. You say you're going to do this stuff. You say you're going to have mass deportations. Oh, yeah, okay. But the details involved in that, it's not going to be as easy as you think, right? So I just wanted to add on to that. Like, they believe what he's saying.
They believe they believe the
but
promise.
you
And he's a
really need to
showman.
look underneath the surface to
Right.
see if that can really
Also,
happen.
look to what actually got accomplished during his 4-year term. I mean, these changes don't happen overnight, right? So is it going to be possible in another 4-year term? No.
Right.
I mean, people are easily impressed by social media today, TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that. They don't care. It's just if it shows a good production. And that's what he did.
Well, here's the thing, though. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending if you voted for him, right? The bottom line is a lot of America voted for him. So and that's something I'm still trying to wrap my head around and figure out. But it wasn't just the voters that voted for Donald Trump that did a 180. Okay, at that same time, you had a lot of companies that basically ripped him a new one and said that they wouldn't back him, and they were totally against him. But let's listen about how they flipped 4 years from now. 4 years ago.
Toyota joining other major auto companies like Ford and General Motors in making $1 million donation to President-elect Trump's inaugural fund. The Wall Street Journal framed this as saying that all the big business people from Silicon Valley to Wall Street and beyond our shores are coming to kiss the ring, bend the knee, and cut the check, Toyota being the latest. Look at the list of companies, though. You can see from Toyota, Ford, General Motors, but it's also Amazon, Meta, OpenAI, Uber, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America. The list goes on and on, many of them making $1 million or more donations. Why do you think that so many business folks are coming to try and curry favor, really, is what it looks like, with President-elect Trump?
So, to his question, why do you think these companies, unless I'll kick you off here, why do you think these companies did a 180 in terms of now, as the Wall Street Journal said, they have come into favor Curry and they're kissing the ring?
We do live in a big business society. So big business champions big business. And I believe that probably what happened here is that they're getting some kind of a political payout as a result of that. In a political payout, I mean some, dispensation of things that they needed for the fiscal year coming. Let's say that they needed more production in India. That's kind of funny saying that, considering that he wants to be everything here in the United States. But they're getting something as a result of that. And that's what happens. I mean, unless you move into those worlds or you live in those worlds, you wouldn't understand why they all of a sudden kowtow and so-called kiss the ring.
Right.
It's big mafia business.
Right. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, Lauren. But so 4 years ago, they said that they would never back somebody. Their values, their moral value was higher than that, right? Now, they're not only they're backing them, they're kissing the ring, but they're putting money towards this inauguration.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your thoughts on that? Do you take what Les is saying, that it's just big business, or what else? Do you agree with that, or is it something else as well?
I mean, I do think it is business at the end of the day. But frankly, I think that companies are scared. He is a very vocal president. His policies are pretty radical, especially on, exporting goods to the U.S. from some of these countries where companies like Toyota are able to manufacture their products at scale, inexpensively. Bringing that to the U.S., their profit margins are going to take a massive hit, right? And preparing for the podcast, right, it is pretty common for companies to donate to inaugurations, right? Because these are lavish events. Part of me as a taxpayer, I'm like, great, like, don't use my money to buy your Chandon, like use the corporate dollar for that. But, I think we're seeing unprecedented levels of donations for this inauguration, probably because they kind of want to, hobnob with this guy who they're a little bit afraid of. At the end of the day, companies do need to consider how these actions impact, all of their constituents. and kind of see the big picture and the longer term view, not just take the view the short term hit on the profits. Like, how is this going to impact your brand's perception with younger consumers who care about authenticity, who, they buy from companies that align with their values, right? So I think, companies need to look at the long game when it comes to these kind of decisions.
Yeah. So Wayne, so what I'm hearing is that fear is one of the major reasons that they're afraid this dude is uncouth. He may attack them, or from a dollar standpoint, with tariffs and stuff to that nature. We use Toyota, as Lauren said, that, they sell cars worldwide, global, probably do a lot of stuff in China. So these issues are the reason that they're flipping to 180. The question I have, though, is that did they sell the American people a bill of goods here? What? And so in other words, these, at the end of the day, these companies' words, their values that they say they belong to, right? You watch a commercial or you go to Lululemon, when you go to any place and they tell you about how they're this and that and this and that, were they selling the American people a bill of goods when it came that they really wasn't going to back President Trump at that time and moving forward?
I mean, Tony, I don't see businesses coming out, no matter who the president is, coming out and saying whether they back this or back that or not. But I do want to just touch upon what Lauren was talking about before, in which this isn't new, that companies donate to inaugurations, right? And this is the part where I'm talking about where you got to go beneath the surface on things, right? And Fox is very interesting. They always catch my attention with the words that they use, right? Quote unquote, has framed this. The Wall Street Journal has framed this as,
but it's not
kiss
framing.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, you see who's doing the framing, right?
I get it.
But here's some facts to throw you away. Okay, Bank of America and Uber, they've also donated to Biden on his inauguration.
But here's the thing, though. And again, I want to hear your facts.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though.
If you like what you hear and want to join us on this journey of making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, please subscribe to a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe now to stay connected for more episodes that challenge, inspire, and lead the change.
They didn't say 4 years earlier that they wasn't going to do nothing with Biden, right? That's the difference.
Right.
I get it.
But who are the
has
companies that
always
said
been
that?
something. Buddy, you got Facebook. You
Okay.
have the Washington Post. You had a bunch of companies that said that they wasn't going to do. Matter of fact, if you even look at the list, some of those companies didn't before. They did it before with other presidents, but they didn't do it the year that Trump got elected, right? Now, all of a sudden, they're switching. Hold on, Les. I want him to finish his thought.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to add that color to that.
Right. Well, listen, money, right? Money is your biggest value, right? And to get that money, you need to market to an audience, right? Now, if this audience now is saying that this is the guy that we want, then I got to make my money.
Yeah. I mean, I think seeing all the red on the map, frankly,
Right? Yeah.
on election day was probably a little scary.
So that was a wake-up call for them.
Yeah, I think they're like, I didn't see this coming.
Damn.
Yeah.
Maybe them values wasn't okay.
What's your thoughts, Les?
My thoughts are this is an age-old practice of all of these companies supporting other, political people, Obama, that administration, or anybody else previously like that. Why all of a sudden now decide to drop that information to everyone? This is strategic. It was Fox's strategy to basically unveil the fact that this stuff has been going on, but the way that they presented it made it sound as if everyone was running to kowtow to it was a new thing. This has been going on forever.
But here, just to be fair, though, to Fox, this was an article written in the Wall Street Journal, and then they reported it,
even Wall Street Journal has. They know also that this is politics by play. This is how they've always done it. They decided right now. This is why you have to be very perceptive and wise about media today. This practice has been going on forever.
Yep.
We are a country that is run by big business. Let's get this clear here.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but the president-elects set the donation values.
They set the donation values. Exactly. Right. So now here you are, as Lauren said, a lot of people play into, the political arena because they want their name to be out there. I mean, it's the way that we all rub shoulders with one another. And so now they're like, all of these companies are doing that. But here's the important caveat here. Black people are the biggest consumers. The LGBTQ communities are the biggest consumers of a lot of these products. They have to consider this because we have such strong buying power that even though now this has been out there, this is detrimental to some of these companies to be exposed this way if that person or this individual, this group of people is not aware of how this media is being produced to them and how they're listening to all this stuff. Usually we don't care. But now you're revealing all of this. But I just saw something recently where Black people are now boycotting a business because they're like, don't buy it. All we have to do is write it on social media and no longer we're not buying that product. And now they're going to have to look at it from that perspective and say, okay, these are the biggest consumers of our product. If it was a Nike or let's say Target right now, Target, who did not fall to this concept of obeying politics as it is, they're fighting against that because their biggest people right now, they just introduced clothing line by Black businesses. They're like, we're not doing that. And what's happening? Everybody's going to buy Target. They're leaving Walmart, who championed, Donald Trump, and they're now going to Target. And we have the power to do that. So this is just basically how politics is played in the media.
Well, and so to that point though, and Lauren talked about fear and stuff to that nature. Will there be, and you're saying that Target and Black Americans are starting to push back. Will there be a pushback, right? Well, people will start boycotting Meta or Amazon, Toyota, or some of these kinds, or is it like, yeah, they'll do that for the first month or two, and then they change their mind?
I mean, I think it depends because if you look at the whole Amazon situation, so I think Bezos was anti-Trump in the past, and Trump was anti-Amazon and also anti-Washington Post, and now he's done a 180, Bezos as well, right? And I think Amazon made a hefty donation, but it's like, you'd be hard-pressed to find like people that are like, I can't do Prime anymore. You know what I mean? Like
that's what I'm saying.
So
it's wrapped around their world,
it's
right?
so central to how we buy nowadays that would be a really big decision for a lot of people.
Well, when it comes to Meta, though, there is really no option. Let's say that it is Toyota. Well, I'll just go buy a Hyundai. There are other options for me.
Right. Yeah.
But with Meta, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, social media.
No young folks are on Facebook anymore anyway. So,
but Instagram and WhatsApp are still
Instagram
very
and
big.
WhatsApp, scamming. Anyway, couple of things, right? Look beneath the surface, right? Amazon, according to my notes, Obama's administration in 2013, Amazon was a contributor to the inauguration, right?
I'm not saying he wasn't.
But, no, I'm not saying. I'm giving the fact. I'm giving the point that don't think that these companies just do it to just one political person or political party. They're in it for the business. So that, and then plus, if you really want the list, a couple of months after this inauguration, they have to file, Trump's folks have to file with the Federal Election Commission. And so you'll know who exactly donated to that inauguration.
Got it. Well, listen, so that's one thing, right? But 4 years ago, also, we had the pandemic, and we also had the murder of George Floyd. And when the murder of George Floyd happened, a lot of these companies said, hey, we need to do something to make sure that we diversify our ranks, right? We finally see that what people of color have gone through. And then so you had a whole number of initiatives that came out, which basically DEI. Now, DEI has been around for years, but it really came to the forefront after the George Floyd murder. And then so at the same time, you had a lot of companies jump in and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We believe in diversity. They did all different type of diversity trainings. They brought on a role in their organization called the DEI C-suite person, right? Yeah. And so at the end of the day, all these things happen, but now 4 years later, let's hear about how those things are changing.
I mean, let's not pretend that corporate America doesn't have a problem with race, doesn't have a problem with diversity. They do. But I think the color they care the most about is green. And so the first thing that happened with DEI was you had the George Floyd protests. You had a lot of pressure, both nationally and internationally, for companies to really commit to doing something about what was happening with race and racism in America. And now you have the blowback from that. That always happens. We see it historically, that whenever there are advances where race and other matters of diversity are concerned, there's always blowback. And so they're looking at the money. That's all they care about.
So as you guys heard, our esteemed colleague said that, hey, they're looking at the money, right? He talked about how, hey, they were 100% in, but there's always, and we've seen this in history, there's always been a blowback when stuff has been, I don't want to say catered, but when things have come up to try to even the playing field, it goes for a little bit, and then all of a sudden there's pushback. Let me hear your thoughts on this, Les. So DEI now, 4 years ago, same thing, January 6th, 4 years ago, all right? And then now, 4 years later, everybody's trying to eradicate it, right? It's the worst thing on the planet, all right? And so I love to hear your thoughts, as our friend on CNN just talked about. Now you have blowback, and companies care more about money than anything else.
Honestly, I feel like a lot of the blowback is because we are such a country of extremes. We don't have a middle ground here. So when George Floyd happened, everybody was running to champion the situation. But it became to people who were not, who could not identify that it was a method of cramming it down our throats. It was so overt. It was just too much at one time. And so now you're seeing people like, hey, we need to pull it back. We need to pull this back. Even if our country was investing in us being educated at this time, what corporate America did was they built these little silos of diversity and inclusion so that we could talk about these things more. But then they also put people that were not of color over that conversation. And then every 5 seconds, you're getting something about, D&I this, D&I that. I mean, even me as a Black person, I was like, okay, this is a little just too much. We don't need to discuss this portion of it. Be a little bit responsible about the discussion here. So I feel like this is what has happened. I've actually had leaders tell me that they're okay with pulling back D&I because they just think it's too much. They're done with it. Most people are like, okay, we're done with this now. Can we move on? It happened, and so can we move on? And quite honestly, we only see it as something that is necessary when something tragic happens. It is not a conversation that is being had every day, either subtly or whatever, so that we're talking about or educating people. We're just getting bombarded with a lot of D&I stuff, but no education, no responsibility attached to it.
So, Lauren, what's your thoughts on that? Because what I'm hearing is now when this first happened, it was about evening the playing field. Okay. It seemed like a lot of companies were unprepared to do that. And these were just stopgaps that they put in place to appease people. Lauren?
Yeah. I mean, I think George Floyd's death was the catalyst to a lot of changes, generally for the positive as it pertains to DE&I. But I think there were kind of two groups of companies, the ones that always cared about it to some degree, right? They had, maybe internal groups and certain roles around it. And then there's sort of the more copycat companies that were like, oh, everyone's talking about this now. I better do the same, right? And I'm sure the intentions were positive, right? So I think what we're seeing now is probably that group number two, those companies that maybe they weren't all in to begin with. They're kind of paring it back because they're not seeing the ROI, quote unquote. But I have strong opinions on ROI measurement as a marketing person, right? I think there's a lot of ways that you can measure the impact, and it's not necessarily just dollars and cents, right? Like, you can measure consumer sentiment. You can look at your audience breakdown, right? Have you attracted more Gen Z and Gen Alpha consumers? Again, people that tend to care more about these type of issues. So, I would challenge executives that are paring back on these initiatives, like, to think about the general kind of good, right? The good, not only the the impact as pertains to dollars and cents, but the good karma that you're generating, right? That will impact you in the long run.
Right. Well, one of the things that the CNN commentator spoke about, he said blowback, right?
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, the companies there was no blowback from the company that initiated their programs. The blowback came from the employees who felt that the people of color employees were getting preferential treatment. Okay. What about me? You haven't done anything for me, right? And so one of the things when he said blowback, let's back up a little bit because I want to make sure we're clear, okay? In 1962, 63, 64, all right, is when affirmative action was initiated. Lyndon Johnson said, hey, listen, it makes sense for a group of people. You want to make even the playing field. They've been behind for 300 years, right? So at the end of the day, the only way things can be equal is by instituting certain programs so that you can bring them up. They can have fair opportunities, not to give them anything for free, right? Just fair opportunities, right? What happened? If you look at the history, immediately, it was attacked, okay? Immediately, all right? And then there was a blowback. And then for years, they were trying to get rid of it. Okay. And then last year, Supreme Court struck it down for school admissions. All right. So is the DEI attack, is that no different than affirmative action? Because that's what our CNN commentator was saying. There's always been blowback and history shows that. Wayne, what's your thoughts on that?
Anytime there's change that benefits the quote unquote minority of people, there's always going to be a blowback, which is unfortunate. I'm happy to say that I am a professor at a university that is very diverse, not only in race, but also in gender as well. Cramming of DEI. I just wanted to go back to what was mentioned before. Yeah, and I look at the course that I teach at the university, race, gender, class, and the media. I specifically said I do not want this to be a requirement. It should be an elective that if you want to learn about it, here is your choice to learn about it. And I think, and in my opinion, that the blowback that we get is for people who are like, why are we forcing this? I have a friend that works in Washington as law enforcement, and that was a big complaint of his. I was like, listen, that's valid. That is your experience, right? They're trying to force you to learn something in which maybe you're set in your ways, but at least start by the choice. Give people the choice.
Right. Les, final word on this thing.
I wanted to actually address that too. I think that it would probably be a lot more received well if we weren't indoctrinated in the type of history that we're taught. If true history was taught, then everybody would be getting
everybody would be saying, I'm in for it, right?
Yeah.
Because then they'll say, oh, I understand.
Yeah,
Right.
I understand. But because our history and even now the politics of today is getting rid of specific books that tell about that history, these are things that we're going to always fight because America has never dealt with the past 400 years. We would not be in this situation if it wasn't for them actually addressing the atrocities of this country initially. Not to mention, it took LBJ and it took Martin Luther King to say, this is a problem for us. We will always be at a disadvantage as Black people here. I'm sorry, but this is the case. We don't know anything about historical wealth or generational wealth. We don't know about that. We were never put at an advantage, no matter how many jobs you give us, what percentage of us go into college or whatever. We have never dealt with that. And we've been lied to about how we were going to be able to be put on an equal playing field of the white people of this country. So what I'm saying is a lot of this is a form of indoctrination where people are saying, well, I've learned it this way and this is how I'm going to learn it. And they're feeling like all of a sudden now you're cramming all this history down their throat. They don't want to hear it because now they're feeling guilty about it, which they shouldn't. We call that, the white privilege burden. And basically the thing is that we need to start at a playing field where we're being honest in this country about what happened here and then giving clear advantages to people of color and people that have come in under this influence of racial tension here, giving them that advantage so that they can be on equal playing ground as everybody else.
Right.
Understand that when we succeed here in this country, of anybody that has come from a diverse background here, it's because we had to work extra hard. Mm-hmm. Even when we get enrolled in a college, we know that we're going for a percentage. I stated this to you recently. I was an NFL cheerleader, and we would have auditions every year. 500, 600 girls would come in there, and I was vying for 4 spots.
Wow.
So understand that this is something that I had to face. So I had to make myself extra good.
There's no question.
Extra stand out.
So some may not know, my mother is from Cuba. So I have, half Latina, half immigrant. And, it was sort of bred into me as a child. Like, you're going to have to work harder. Right. And like, you don't have a silver spoon, and that's okay.
Here's the thing though, is that back to your point about the not learning history. A lot of white people don't believe that. They believe that black people don't work hard. They believe that black people, they've given stuff to black people. I've even seen a clip that says, if I see a black pilot, I hate to say this, I hope he's qualified. Okay? So these are the things that people don't believe that, but because they don't know the history, right? They look at their own life, and then they don't, back to one of our ground rules about lived experience. They don't want to learn about other people's lived. I worked hard. Privilege? What are you talking about? I came from nothing, and blah 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 blah. Right? And then how could I have privilege over you when I lived in a trailer and I didn't come up with anything, and we had to fight our way up? Blah blah blah. Right? And to be fair, that person's story is true.
Right.
All right. It doesn't
It comes down to race and experience.
It doesn't erase their experience. You did have to jump over a hoop. You did come with nothing. But that doesn't mean that you still don't have a privilege. Wayne, go ahead.
The foundation of all that is through the class that I teach. And you get that through media, right? How do you get to the point where I didn't see no black pilot before, right? Because we don't normally see it on the surface when it comes to media. Right. Yeah. And so then those biases start to formulate, and then those biases germinate, and those biases carry through generations. And it takes mere generations just to try to erase that to the truth of what it actually is.
Right. When we talk about generations, though, one of the things, you talked about college, we talked about affirmative action. We discussed how last year it was struck down from a mission standpoint at colleges. Numbers now show that that people of color, the numbers have decreased substantially, okay, from a mission standpoint. But this is the one thing that nobody talks about.
I was just reading a headline from the New York Times today about a lawsuit against a bunch of elite schools, Georgetown, Penn, and MIT. And guess what the preferences are? For people whose mommies and daddies have a lot of money and they just got a ticket into the school. I just don't get, where's the outrage about that? That's been going on in this country for hundreds of years.
Well, I don't agree with that either.
Where's the outrage? Why are we only focused on race when this is affirmative action?
And we're going to go to the New Haven Green and we're going to fight. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm outraged just hearing that.
So think about that for a second. Struck down affirmative action from an admission standpoint because it's unfair that people of color are looked at first in terms of going into university. But for centuries, white alum has been able to get their kids in who dominate from a mission standpoint, but that's okay. Where is the like she said, like Abby Phillips said, where is the outrage to that? Let me hear your thoughts.
The legacy admission is there, as you mentioned. Not to mention that this whole case was brought about wasn't by white students. It was
by
Asian students. And now, if I'm not mistaken, I need to check it, but part of that number is part of the decline. The numbers of Asian students being
They've declined as well. All
has declined.
Yeah, their numbers
right?
declined.
Any
as well.
shade has declined.
It's time to rethink your protein. AgileLab's protein bars are crafted with high-quality protein, double the leucine, and enriched branched-chain amino acids, essential for optimal muscle recovery. Finally, a protein bar that works as hard as you do. So visit agilelabs.com and use the code BEP to get 20% off. That's agilelabs.com, promo code BEP.
Once again, it comes down to educating people that come here and how media portrays these kind of things. Because if that Asian student was educated on the fact that the only reason why he is being admitted is because of the civil rights movement and because of all of the things, the affirmative action, then maybe he would be a little bit more tolerant of seeing that. He himself, from what I understand, wasn't doing very well in school. So this is why he decided to use this as a case model for why.
Well, when you think that somebody pitted him to do that, I don't think he just came up off his
No,
top of his head.
it was a perfect opportunity.
It was an
Right.
opportunity
for conservatives
yeah.
to jump onto it.
Wait,
Yeah.
somebody told him to do. I don't think
He might have been, he
It
might have
doesn't
been,
matter.
he might have been
Doesn't matter,
coached
but all I know
to
is-
that's what
say
I'm saying,
that.
coach, right?
He might have been coached to say that. But, here's the thing. How we are portrayed, to the community, how we are pitted against each other racially is something that has always been the case here in this country. And so, I just watched an article. I watched a clip the other day where an Asian gentleman who is an educator was talking about the fact that if we united as people of color, what could we do in this country? Because unified is the fact that we share the same type of issues. We are still trying to struggle against a community that doesn't want us to succeed. And what it has done is it's pitted us against each other to say that you are a model minority as an Asian person, and so you're better than the Black people or the Hispanic people of this country. When in all reality, it was Black people that fought for you to have those rights. And it was Black people who are always going to be in the same position as you are in when the day is ended, because now I don't see that many Asian faces in leadership. I don't see many of you there. So you have to look at this and you have to say, don't listen to the media or what this country is saying about the racial situation here in America. Look for it yourself. Open your eyes and see, know your own history as an Asian individual here about how you were treated when you came over here.
Right. Right now we're in we have a lot of issues. Okay. We talked about the inauguration. We talked about the rollback of DEI. But there's so many things that's going on right now that we're struggling with, right? And one of them has to do with healthcare.
In Florida, a woman has been charged with threatening her health insurance provider during a phone conversation that took place on Tuesday. She allegedly uttered the same words that police say were found on the bullet casings used in Thompson's killing: delay, deny, and possibly depose.
So as you guys know, a few weeks ago, Brian Thompson, who's the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, was assassinated in New York City going to a conference. And since that time frame, there's been a ton of, when we talk about blowback, right? A ton of blowback against the healthcare industry, to the point where there's people who don't even have empathy for Brian Thompson and his family and his kids, because they feel that he ran an organization that actually ended up killing a lot of people because they denied a lot of health claims. So as you hear in this clip, a woman's in last week is basically threatening somebody and then use the same words that the perpetrator, the words that supposedly he put on the bullets, denied, deposed, and whatever the case may be. So just real quick, Lauren, what's your thoughts on somebody being murdered and at the same time understanding that the company that he was leading was in an industry that is deplorable. Let's be fair. Let's call it like what it is, right? However, at the same time, what's your thoughts on the citizens now saying that the murderer, Luigi, whatever his last name,
Luigi Mangione, all right,
That ain't no sound
is a hero.
So I think people are outraged, right? And I think, we have maybe spoken out over the last years a little bit more about certain issues that have plagued the country for years, the whole George Floyd situation, among others, right? So people are outraged about a lot of things. I think, Luigi just took it to an extreme that's, frankly not acceptable, right? It is an atrocity taking a life of somebody. But I do think that it's an example of people just being, increasingly frustrated with corporate America and kind of the fabric of our society being for profit, right? So I think there's a lot of, there's many ways that he could have handled it that didn't involve murder, and he probably should have pursued those avenues. And I hope that people that do feel as outraged as him realize that there are resources available to work through some of this stuff, right? But I hope that the action did bring to, somebody's attention over there in healthcare corporate America that something has to change.
Yeah. So I don't think that's really happened thus far. When you're talking about something has to change, I think our leaders right now are still kicking the can down the road.
So in this op-ed that Whitty wrote, he said, "We know the healthcare system doesn't work as well as it should. We understand people's frustrations with it. Our mission is to help make it work better." What is being done?
Well, this is really on policymakers. There's been this fight over years about whether to address coverage or whether to address cost, how to address cost. Republicans mostly want more price transparency. Democrats want mostly more coverage. Neither side has really been willing to do what it takes to bring costs down. And every time they try to, the people who make money off the healthcare industry, which is now 17% of the nation's GDP, all yell and scream and complain. So nothing really has happened for many years now.
And nor will it change. I mean, Wall Street Journal is reporting that UnitedHealthcare revenue through September was record-breaking, just under $300 billion of revenue. So as long as you're raking in that kind of money, things ain't going to change.
But do you think seeing, a peer, right, the leaders of some of these companies, seeing that happen to a peer, like, shit's scary. You know what I mean, right? So if it were me and I'm not a healthcare CEO, I would want to know what's happening at the lower levels, the lower echelons of the company, right? Like, I don't know that anyone is actually taking that action after this, but
his job though, and the CEO's job is to make money.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
They don't care.
Right.
I mean, let's just be fair here, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, his job is to make money. Whoever's leading the company. So they're going to cut, they're going to do whatever they need to do because they got shareholders that they need to answer to.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, when they make money for the shareholders, they make money. That's why their packages are
Dividends.
$20 million. So you have a chicken and egg thing here in an industry, which, and I hope you guys didn't miss the big number here, which is 17% of our gross domestic. So think about if I don't even know what our total gross domestic, 100 trillion or whatever it is, maybe it's more than that, but 17% is going to healthcare when we've tried over, it makes no sense that this country, supposed to be the greatest country on the planet, cannot come up with a plan to have healthcare for their citizens. They're always talking about immigration. They're always talking about they're coming over here
Or
to take
socialism.
this, or whatever the case may be. But we can't come up with a plan for healthcare, and it's the 17% of our GDP. Les, give me your thoughts.
So I'm going to, I appreciate my co-hosts, their opinion about all this, but I'm going to kind of, as somebody who worked in the healthcare system, I'm going to kind of explain it here. We will never get rid of this healthcare system because we are afraid of socialized medicine. We are afraid of these kind of things that would bring healthcare to everybody. This business of 17% of our GDP is never going to end. And so this is why you're going to always find this fighting. And as far as the case of
Hold
Luigi,
on, before you go there, Luigi, I just want to ask you a question, right?
Mhm.
So you just got finished saying that we'll never get rid of it,
Nope.
right? And because of socialized medicine, right? Because
We
people
won't.
they don't want. Well, hold on, let me ask you this question, then I'll let you finish, right? You just got finished talking about, both of you guys got finished talking about history. People don't know, they don't know our history, they don't know anything, right? When it comes to socialism, what do people know? Except what people have put in their minds.
Exactly.
In terms of what socialism is. And these
Exactly.
people have never been out of state lines.
Yes.
All right. But somebody's telling them that you don't want socialism. The other countries are horrible, right? But here in the U.S., which makes no sense.
But-
and I got to say this one thing too. So, and the thing about it is, for a lot of, we have socialistic programs. Social Security, that's socialism. Medicare, that's socialism. If I told somebody right now that we would get rid of Social Security, they'll be like, oh, you can't do that.
I
All
just
right?
had this conversation with someone a couple weeks ago.
But it's happening.
Yeah.
All right. No, but my point is they don't know what socialism is. And so you're pushing back and saying that we can't have free healthcare because of socialism, but they don't have an idea of what that is. Go
I
ahead,
think
Les.
people. Oh, sorry. I was going to say. I
No,
think
go
people
ahead.
kind of equate socialism with communism.
That's
with-
exactly right.
There
That's
is
exactly what it is.
overlap, but
Yeah.
they're not the same.
They're not the same. They're not the same. So, as someone who's traveled outside of this country, I've seen socialized medicine work in Europe,
Flat out.
in Mexico,
Flat out. Canada.
in all these.
All right.
Yes, and it is not the same thing. People are taken care of, and no matter what you hear on this side of the
Ocean.
ocean, the thing is that it is working there. And people are taken care of. They're taken care of when they're in their old age. They're they don't have to worry about it. Now, yes, you do have to stand on the line to be seen, but isn't that what we do now? Because I'm waiting 3 or 4 months to see a doctor now.
I tried to
So-
get an eye doctor appointment. All right. I can't go see him. I called the other day. I can't go see him until March 12th. All right.
Yes.
So it happens.
It
So
happens.
I,
Don't forget
I
your
did live
copay.
in Europe for a time, and there are there are a lot of pluses to it, and everyone has it, right? So it's there. There are definitely drawbacks, right?
Right.
Like, I think I was like, oh, I need to get a checkup. I haven't had a checkup in a year, and they're like, you're calling me why? Do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with you. No, you don't need to come to the doctor, right? So I feel like the preventative care that we have in our system is a positive, right? But the fact that people can't afford basic healthcare is a
healthcare.
huge problem.
Yeah, my sister, who is a nurse practitioner, told me that a gentleman who had an arterial and thrombosis in his leg, and he lives in a very rural community of Arkansas, had to go
folks.
all the way to Mississippi to get treated. And this is what I'm talking about. As long as you can afford health care, then you're fine. And we
Right.
all are privileged to have
Yeah.
health care, thank God.
100%.
But the problem is that this is who it's supposed to support. And policies can be written in where socialized medicine is concerned that you have a yearly checkup. These are all things that can be policy put in place for policy.
Correct. You can do all that.
You can do all of that.
100% agree.
So the thing is that because we're not taught about that, and because most Americans don't travel outside of the United States to see how the other half lives, that we're listening to the trash that we're receiving from the media companies, and this is what's
Well,
happening.
wait, hold on a second. It's not just the media companies, all right?
Well, it's just everything.
It's big business. You just
Big business,
the bottom line. They don't want you to want that because then it takes money out of their pocket. That's where the 17%
information
comes in.
The information that you are seeing is via media, be it advertising or whatever. That is what you're seeing. You know, somebody can be a talking head in politics or the congressional floor talking about it, but the thing is, it's what you are seeing and what you are consuming. You know, when you see something like, we have the best healthcare policy here, do this, all these wonderful, heartfelt commercials that you're seeing are also that you will buy into this image of why it is so good to pay into an insurance company. I wanted to address also the idea of Luigi Mangione killing the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. And I'm sorry, I'm maybe not supposed to say that word. I am a huge, it might sound like I'm crazy, but I believe that you need to look deeper. At the risk of saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, I think it's very strange that this young man, the way that he looks, the way that he was captured. I mean, there are people that have done atrocities to anyone. We haven't even found these people. So why is it was so easy to find this person? This is such a wag the dog thing right now. You know, you have to look and say, what are we looking at in the news, and what is being hidden while we're looking at this?
So just so I'm clear here, I just want to make sure I'm clear. What I'm hearing is that did somebody put him up to do this?
Oh, absolutely. He looks too good.
So he's he's an Oswald. He's a patsy.
That's what I'm hearing. Listen.
Media's got you.
And they're getting really good at it too, because some of these guys are a certain look, you know, like what foolish man would pull down his mask to talk to somebody? Y'all, come on. I couldn't have written a better script here. You know,
Okay.
my script writing skills are much better.
I got a lot of thoughts
everything's
on
possible.
that one. I got a lot of thoughts on
But let's hear your
Well,
thoughts.
I mean, listen, there's sometimes. All right, here's an example. The Ethan Crumbley kid. Remember Crumbley?
Yeah, Michigan.
Right? Michigan, shot, parents. When the media ran that story, what were the pictures that we saw of Ethan? My man praying, innocent looking, right? Until someone, and it was years ago, until the media finally started showing pictures of this guy as a high schooler, totally changed, right? So it could be anybody, right? Luigi is an anomaly because it's a person that you don't expect
But that's
to
my
commit
point.
the crime.
That's my point.
Right?
That's my point. There has not been any history of this guy, and he comes out of nowhere. Same with the person that shot at Trump. No history, no decline in his family structure, things that would promote the image of this person that we're seeing.
So what does that tell
Nothing.
us about our society now? What does that say? Like, I mean, it's just an arbitrary question
Secret
out there,
cell
right?
individuals, because I can guarantee you that I don't hear about him being put in a modern prison. Like, where did he go? Where is he incarcerated
He's
right
in New
now?
York.
He's in New York, in which one of the news outlets were stationed or outside of the prison,
Mm-hmm.
and the prison had the station on in the prison, and they would ask questions. The reporters like, "Is Luigi being treated well?" Yeah! You can hear the crowd. You can hear the prison in the background answering those questions, which I thought was very strange. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
He's not in modern population. I can guarantee
Well, no,
you
no,
that.
he
Right,
wouldn't be.
right.
So he would be. He
would be sequestered.
Yeah, he has to be sequestered, and he would be in a dangerous situation.
I just feel it's very strange, you all.
So what I think is strange, though, and we talked about history earlier, right? And one of the things that Trump got elected on was immigration, and then obviously he spoke about immigration over the last couple of weeks. And one of the things that he's talking about doing is getting rid of the Birthright Citizenship Act, which is part of the 14th Amendment. Okay, which going back to what you said earlier is people can promise things, but can he actually do it? But net, one of the things that people have been talking about, because if most people don't even know what the 14th Amendment is. They don't know anything about the birthright citizenship and all the things that come with the 14th Amendment. So let's, as we move forward, let's play this last clip or this last segment.
The 14th Amendment officially becomes a part of the Constitution.
If you are born here, you are born with all of the liberties and the protections of U.S. citizenship.
That overturns the Dred Scott decision, which said that black people could not be citizens no matter where they were born, even if they've been here for generations.
So, as I stated earlier, most people don't know anything about the 14th Amendment. It was enacted in 1868, okay? And one of the main reasons, I think it was John Bonham, who was the congressman that was the writer of the law of the amendment. One of the main reasons that it was enacted is because you had 4 million black slave people who were now free, who could not be citizens. Matter of fact, you just heard in the clip when he talked about the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott was a slave, okay, who sued the United States and said that he should be free, okay? And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court struck it down and said he's not a citizen. So these rights that under the Constitution doesn't apply to him because he's not a citizen. Thus, that's where the 14th Amendment came out of, to ensure that people who are born here are citizens of the United States. So, Lauren, question I want to ask you real quickly, based on Trump saying he's going to get rid of it because he feels the people who are coming over our border, they're manipulating the laws by having babies here, and then they automatically become citizenship. So if we eliminate that, then this way, we ain't got to worry about them being here. We don't have to worry about separating their families. We can just send them back, and then we could be done with them. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's totally on brand for him. I think it makes his supporters like really amped up because it's like a concrete action that he can supposedly take against immigration. Now, to what you were saying very early on, I don't think that this is going to be easy for him to accomplish, right? So I don't know that we'll see this one actually happen. But, just the thought of it, I think is really, it's unfair, right? Like you're punishing these kids potentially for an action that their parents took, trying to give them a better life, right? I think there are a lot of adverse implications to it.
Got it. Wayne.
Yeah, you got to look deeper. You got to look deep into this, right? So the 14th Amendment, born here. I mean, I am on Ancestry.com, my friends, trying to find another country so that my kids, if I know that we have a connection with another country, they can play for that national team in soccer. But anyway, besides the point. But in a more serious thing, we need to look at the common sense about what he is saying, what Donald is saying. You need to ratify an amendment, first of all, right? And that's 3/4 of the state that you need to do that with. The 14th Amendment is also talking about first of all, let me go back. His campaign, any baby born would need to have at least one parent be a citizen or lawful permanent resident. Okay, that's what his campaign is saying for that. Then I looked at the 14th Amendment and I see the word naturalized.
Right.
And I think here's where he may have a little bit of wiggle room here. You need to be 18. You need to be lawful permanent resident for 5 years. If you're married, 3 years. You need to read, write, speak basic English. Asterisk there, right? You need to understand U.S. history and government. Now listen, if you're going to quiz part of this nation of citizens, how many are going to pass that?
Though, but Wayne, here's the thing, though.
But let me just start one more thing.
Okay.
Good moral character, right?
Yeah.
To be naturalized as a citizen. This is not happening, folks.
Yeah, so number one,
It ain't happening. It ain't gonna happen.
That's why it's an amendment.
Right.
Okay? If this was like a regular law or something, you can overturn law.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? It's an amendment.
Right.
Okay? So you can't just overturn.
You
Yeah.
can't just
Yeah.
overturn.
Yeah, and I know you read the description, but think about it for a second. Somebody's born and they got to take a history test. Okay, at 2 months old, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, no, but
No,
it's 18 to be natural. It's part of the criteria.
When
but
you're born here,
if you're born here, you're born here. You're a
then
U.S. citizen.
You're a citizen.
Yes.
Period. Okay.
Yes.
So that's a naturalized citizen. You were born here. That part where you would read.
No, you're
about,
you're a citizen.
You're a citizen.
You're not naturalized, but you're a citizen.
The part that you're talking about is if you want to come and request to be a citizen.
Correct.
You have to jump through these hoops.
Correct.
All right. But if you're born here, you're a citizen.
You're a citizen.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so he
100%.
can't get over that. All right. That's in the 14th Amendment. But again, this is things that his people want to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, to appease them, even if it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's a way, again, separating and dividing people based on us versus them. Les, let me hear your thoughts.
I just want to address Wayne saying that he wants to see on Ancestry, because right now, Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone is giving you a dual passport to get the heck out of America right now. So you might want to check into that. Yeah, they are basically heavily promoting for us to return back to Africa.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. This is pandering to his constituents. It is not going to happen, especially since his family benefited from this as Scottish immigrants. He's going to have a hard sell there. Yeah, he's been pandering a lot, and I think that a lot of his constituency are getting, this new phrase right now, the leopard eating their faces, because they're finding out that he did all of that to get into office. But this is what this man does. This man is a showboat. If y'all really wanted to know who this man was, you should have asked a New Yorker. So let me tell you, this is something that he does all the time. He sensationalizes everything. He gets to where he wants to go, and then he does a complete takeover, and he only promotes people because they are loyal to him. You, the masses out there, you're loyal in getting him his votes, but he's basically going to do whatever he wants to do once he's in office. And he's going to have a hard time trying to promote this or to get this overturned within the United States.
His media partners will most likely find a way to frame something of why he can't do that.
Exactly.
That's just my
exactly. They're going to write. Yeah, they're
going
to
to
write
blame it
a
on the
narrative to say,
government.
"Oh, he tried,
right,
but he wasn't able to do
and
it."
because through my observation, that base is not as educated in that area to look for themselves about this information. They'll take that as the face value and run with it,
Being
which is
so
unfortunate.
nice.
Which is unfortunate.
You being so
I gotta be
nice.
nice.
So
I'm
as
just
in
kidding.
taking things at face value, I want to hear you guys' predictions for 2025 at face value. So what do you think? We're about to inaugurate a new president. We have healthcare issues. There's always going to be, we had somebody in New Orleans, unfortunately ride down and murder, 15 people in the name of Allah. So there's always going to be a lot of turbulence here in the United States. So I love, Les, I'm going to start with you. What's your predictions for 2025? Keep it tight.
I would say you all prepare yourself in the green room with your makeup and everything like that, because you are basically going to be a part of a Donald Trump documentary that's going to come out similar to his TV shows that he often does. This is going to be a show, you all, for 4 years. And I think you need to gear yourself up for it. A lot of us are so fearful what's going to happen, but I'm telling you all, y'all are going to get a good show.
Season 2.
Okay, Wayne.
Some of the priorities that Donald has mentioned that he wanted to take care of in the first 100 days, I really don't see that happening. And only because there's only one Republican vote is the difference between things happening. And if you rub some of it, we've already seen a bit of the infighting and kind of the turbulence within the party. I don't see a lot of that stuff happening, especially when it comes to H-1B visas, things of that. That's one example of that, in which you're not going to get all of your Republican backers with that. On a more, so for the other side of the party, the Democratic Party, I do see a leader emerging. It's going to have to happen. It needs to happen, especially while the infighting is still continuing in the Republican Party. And then on a more depressing note, I do fear that we are going to be seeing more politically motivated violence in this country. And that's sad.
Lauren.
Yeah. So I do think that to talk about something non-Donald Trump, related, it's always related, right? The rise of AI with companies. I think the valuation of chip-making company NVIDIA this year, absolutely skyrocketing. We see big tech companies cozying up to Trump, right? I think there will be new policies around that. I think certain industries may be deregulated that weren't in the past. So, hopefully there will lead to innovation, positive innovation, right? That impacts you and me, not only in our jobs, but maybe in our personal lives as well. And maybe Elon Musk somewhere in politics officially.
I love those predictions. Those are great.
You better pass that test.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. I want to get a quick final thought from each of you guys. So I'll start with you.
My final thought is that I don't feel like we need to have fear motivate us in this next political arena. I do feel that the Democratic Party, when they are bringing in a contender, that it is somebody that is not basically battling the antics of Donald Trump, but basically coming in with some real policies of change. And that's where we're going to succeed in our next election.
Got it. Lauren?
Yeah, so I think it does feel like we have taken a step back in a lot of ways, but I want to encourage everybody to, don't ignore the small progress that we make year over year, right? So while companies may be paring back D&I initiatives, we are seeing more diversity in the C-suite, right? And that's something that benefits everyone. So I would say acknowledge the small changes, and we're all in it for the long haul. Like let's keep going at it and see what we can accomplish.
Awesome. And then you have the final word, Wayne.
Thanks, Tony. Listen, as a professor in media, I implore people to what I call dig deeper. And that is when you see and you hear information, take it upon yourself to dig deeper and research it. Research the facts. We do an exercise in class called Clear the Fog. And that is when you see or read something, you're going to extract the facts, you're going to extract the opinions, and you're going to extract the generalizations in a story so that you are better equipped to make your own decision on whether a story that's being presented to you is right or wrong in your opinion. So dig deeper.
I love that. Fog. Facts,
Like that.
opinion, generalizations.
Clear it out.
I love it, buddy. And more importantly, I love you guys for coming on Pull Up, Speak Up, provide your perspectives. I really appreciate you guys have busy schedules. So thank you for joining. Stay right there because you guys are going to help us with our call to action. So I think it's now time for
Tony's Tidbit.
Okay. And the tidbit today: building a better world starts with asking tough questions and boldly pursuing the right answers, even when it invites criticism or discomfort. And you heard a lot of that throughout this episode, especially with our final thoughts from my panelists. And so we want to remind you that don't forget to check out this week's episode of Need to Know with Dr. Nasinga Burton on the Black Executive Perspective podcast. Dr. Burton dives into all the timely and crucial topics shape our community and world. You don't want to miss it. You want to stay on top of these things. And more importantly, like Wayne was saying, you definitely want to clear the fog. So definitely check her out every Thursday on a Black Executive Perspective podcast. You don't want to miss it. So now it's time for BEP's call to action. Our goal is to eliminate all forms of discrimination, right? And for us to do that, we have a call to action called LESS. LESS, and our panel is going to help us and help us go through LESS. Lauren, kick us off.
The L stands for learn. Educate yourself on racial and cultural nuances. Nobody knows it all, right? And there are a lot of things, frankly, we haven't learned growing up. So I encourage everyone to kind of question everything and not make decisions based on fear, but based on facts.
The E is for empathy, and that's be open to understanding diverse views. When we learn about other people's experience, it combats bias. So be open-minded.
The S stands for share. Share your insights to enlighten others. Don't be afraid to share. You might have a perception that someone else doesn't see, an insight that somebody else doesn't see. And by giving that perspective, you enlighten that other person.
Thank you, Les. And the final S stands for stop. You want to stop discrimination as it walks in your path. So if you're at Auntie Jenny's house for Sunday dinner and Auntie Jenny says something that's inappropriate, you say, Auntie Jenny, we don't believe that. We don't say that. And you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate LESS, LESS, will build a more fair, more understanding world. And more importantly, we'll all see the change that we want to see because less will become more. So again, we appreciate you tuning in another episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast. You can follow, subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on our socials of LinkedIn, X, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at A Black Exec. For our fabulous roundtable, my man down here at the University of New Haven, Wayne Edwards, the legendary Les Frye, and my girl with the LGS hat on, Lauren Burke. Thank you for participating. We talked about it. We learned about it. We even fought about it. But guess what? We still love you, and we're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.